Hello all you wonderful people, it is the Gaming Rift once again and we are bringing you a 7 Days to Die video. I've been enjoying this game a lot recently and today I'm going to be making some content on it, specifically going over what I think to be the worst perks in 7 Days to Die in the current update. These perks can either be on this list because they have lackluster benefits to the player or your team, or simply because there are better alternatives. Before we begin guys, if you want to smack that like button and subscribe to the channel where we do all sorts of gaming related things, largely themed around zombies. Now let's get into the video. Infiltrator is a perception perk that allows you to essentially be more proficient when looting houses in the wasteland, as you take less damage from landmines. Landmines trigger 2 seconds slower and you can even pick up landmines. This sounds good in theory until you realise that landmines just aren't all that common in the open world. You predominantly find them in the wasteland, which is only one of 5 accessible biomes in 7 Days to Die, meaning that for most of your game, this perk is very niche and not all that applicable. But the picking up landmines thing isn't even all that impressive because salvage operations exists, and you can earn way more money from selling all the shit that you can wrench with that perk than any money that you could hope to make from landmines. Taking half damage from landmines is pretty nice, but with enough health you can survive a direct impact from a landmine, so this perk is very niche and the skill itself is outclassed by others. Animal Tracker allows you to locate animals on your compass or map when you crouch. This perk is okay, it's just more weird than anything else. The first thing I dislike about it is that it doesn't show zombie animals, which are the most common and dangerous threats that you will encounter in 7 Days to Die. Animals like dogs, vultures, and especially bears pose a massive threat to the player and your team, and this perk doesn't show them on your map, which is not very good in the slightest. Not to mention some points of interest have more animals than others, such as a farmhouse or a barn. Chances are you'll find animals in there, meaning that literal game knowledge will reduce this perk's effectiveness. If you want a good animal related perk, stick with the Huntsman. It allows you to get double the resources from skinning animals. Treasure Hunter is a really niche perk that allows you to dig up treasure far faster and find 30% more items in buried treasure. This sounds more useful than it is. For one, most of your time with buried treasure missions and treasure maps is spent traveling to the location rather than actually being there. You can use a steel shovel and something like Miner 69er to one-shot most dirt blocks, meaning that this perk's application really isn't all that helpful. Not to mention you get no rewards from it for quests, which means that you may as well just get Daring Adventurer, since that allows you to pick 2 rewards from completing a quest instead of 1, which will help you more than this perk ever will. And for treasure maps, 30% more loot is nothing to scoff at, but I find that the loot already is very insane. Like, I did a treasure map yesterday and I've not upgraded this perk at all, yet I was able to get well over 200 pistol rounds, so its effect is good, but I just don't see any reason to upgrade this. Like, it's a very niche perk, and there are others that help you better. Pack Mule essentially opens all of your inventory slots and reduces you from being encumbered, and when maxed out, prevents you from being encumbered altogether. This perk sounds very good for a beginner until you realize that pocket mods exist, and once you're able to craft the triple armor pocket mods and clothing mods, you will essentially have all of the benefits of this perk, but without the need to waste any skill points. So I don't see any reason to use this perk when you can simply craft things and you can use that to get the exact same effects. And some people might say, well, I don't really want to waste a pocket mod or a mod slot, but armor, especially good armor that's high rarity, you will have like 3 or 4 modding slots anyways, meaning that it's not even that bad sacrificing 1 slot on something that will help you tremendously throughout your entire game. Well Insulated is just awful, and probably my nomination for the worst perk in all of 7 Days to Die. This perk makes it so that you are more resistant to cold and hot weather, and you never suffer the severe effects of, sunstroke stroke or hypothermia or whatever it is. This sounds really useful until you realize that in the hot biome you find yucca fruit, which can be used to make yucca juice and yucca smoothies, which is not only extremely common but a straight up better way to cure dehydration than regular water. And in the ice biome, which makes you starve faster, you find loads of animals and things that you can hunt to scavenge food. So this perk just doesn't really make much sense to me, and you can again just wear clothes and make yourself more resistant to the elements that way. Maybe a controversial opinion, but I really don't like healing factor. This perk allows you to regenerate 1 health every 5 seconds at its max level, and critical injuries heal twice as fast. Keep in mind that every time you level up in 7 Days to Die, you gain 1 additional health point, meaning that this perk is actively getting worse and worse throughout your playthrough. But even if we work under the assumption that you have this perk maxed out at level 1, it will still take over 8 minutes to regenerate you to full health, which is just not useful at all. And regenerating critical injuries twice as fast sounds really good, until you realize that Physician exists. Physician allows you to get more health back from healing items, which is a much more effective way and efficient way of regenerating health, especially in combat. Not to mention, you can instantly cure sprains and things instantly with Physician. So regenerating them twice as fast versus curing a couple of them instantly. And keep in mind, this is level 1 Physician. This isn't even like Physician when it's upgraded. Simply getting the level 1 version at 4 intelligence. What the absolute fuck is the point of this perk? And speaking of fortitude perks that sound better than they actually are, we have pain tolerance. This reduces the damage you take by 25% from all sources, and it prevents you from being stunned. Okay, this sounds good in theory, until you realize that armor does exactly the same thing, and if you have a full set of good armor like steel or military, it will reduce the damage you take much more than this perk will. Like, it'll reduce the damage you take by like 50%, 55%. So this perk seems redundant already, and you may as well just level up heavy armor and light armor, whichever one you prefer, just to get, the reduced stamina penalty and movement penalty. Now, again, preventing yourself from being stunned, that is very useful, especially in melee combat, until you realize that being stunned isn't even the worst status effect. The one that springs to mind straight away is concussion, which lasts for 2 real life hours, not in-game hours, 2 real life hours, and it lowers all of your stats by 1. This perk doesn't affect that, so I don't see why you would completely make yourself immune to one status effect that isn't even that dangerous compared to one that actively poses a threat to your character. Better barter affects the modifier for traders, allowing you to sell things for 25% more money and buy things for 25% less dukes. This sounds useful until you realize that this is just the evil little brother of Daring Adventurer, which increases the amount of money you get from all sources by 20%, and it allows you to pick 2 quest rewards instead of 1. I think Daring Adventurer is just the better choice. It affects the amount of money you get from all sources, not just selling and buying. Not to mention, salvage operations exist, which literally doubles the amount of resources you get from scrapping things and wrenching things, meaning that, you guessed it, you get twice as much money from selling everything that you wrench. So getting 25% more money versus 100% more money, yeah, you see the point, right? Charismatic nature is one of my favorite perks in the game, as I predominantly play 7 Days to Die with friends. However, I kinda wanted to include it because it's the only perk that is completely 100% useless in solo, as its effects, whilst useful and provide a wide array of stat boosts, only apply to team members and not yourself. So if you're playing 7 Days to Die solo, stay away from this perk. It sounds very good, but its effects don't even apply to you, so what the fuck's even the point? In co-op, it's amazing. In solo, not useful whatsoever. Archery is, in my opinion, the worst ranged weapon skill in the game, because yes, whilst you do get the 50% stat bonuses that you would expect to damage, rate of fire, reload speed, unfortunately you have no interesting stat boost with bows. Compare that to sniper rifles, where you gain a stackable damage buff up to 50% more damage for every successive kill. Or compare that to assault rifles, where you regenerate stamina with every bullet you land on the zombies. or shotguns, which allows you to cripple zombies and stun them in place for 8 seconds. Archery, you don't get any of that, unfortunately. Not to mention, bows are, in my opinion, the weakest ranged weapon in the game. They're predominantly used for hunting and stealth, because if you use these in Blood Moons, then the joke is on you. Like, stealth is not going to matter a tiny bit in Blood Moons. You know, the zombies know where you are at all times, there's a load of them, you need something fast, like an assault rifle or a pistol, something like that. So, upgrading archery seems pretty pointless. Not to mention, if you do want a perk that increases how good bows are, you may as well just get From the Shadows, which makes you do an additional 250% damage with any weapon while sneaking, including bows. So there's really no point in archery when From the Shadows improves not only bows, but also melee weapons and whatever else you can think of, as long as the zombies don't know you're there. Alright guys, well that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to subscribe as always, and I'll see you on the next one.